Hey everyone, how's it going? Today we're going to review the HG2 plugin from Blackbox. We're going to cover some good use cases, what I do and don't like about this plugin, and whether or not it's worth the purchase. Before we dive in, just a quick reminder to leave a like down below and hit that subscribe button. This will help me continue to bring valuable content to awesome viewers like you. So at its core, this is a saturation and distortion plugin. I also noticed that it seems to have some form of compression going on behind it, and the compression is musically pleasing, so I can't complain too much about that. It feels a little pumpy to me, but it still sounds pretty decent. Aside from that, I also noticed it seems to do something to the stereo image whenever you place it on a sound, especially if there's a lot of unison or just a lot of things that are going wide within the stereo field. It seems to almost, I don't know, it seems to make it more mid-focused almost. So for that reason, I actually don't recommend using this on super wide sounds like a super saw or something. We have this on-off switch, which seems to turn off the entire plugin itself, which I don't fully understand. And I don't know why it doesn't work half the time. But I don't understand it because you also have this bypass button. So if you wanted this thing turned off, why not just hit the bypass button? But whatever. Anyways, you also have on the input, it goes into this you can turn on this saturation. You can either have it just go straight through and bypass this additional saturation spot, or you can turn it on and you have this amount knob of the actual saturation, and you can control whether this saturation is being affected in the highs or over the entire spectrum, which is flat, or over the low end. Aside from that, this saturation also has this alternate tube, which I guess is supposed to send it, I don't know, through just some alternate tube setting. I noticed whenever you turn this on, it makes the high end push a little more. But anyways, let's keep moving. Aside from that, there's this pentode knob, which I guess adjusts the amount of signal that you're pushing through the pentode tube, which the difference between the pentode and the triode apparently is the pentode adds even harmonics, the triode adds odd harmonics. I noticed, and it's kind of weird in the manual because it says the triode tends to be harsher, but I actually noticed the pentode seems to sound a lot harsher than the triode. And for this reason, I actually prefer the sound of the triode. Aside from that, you have this air, air thing. Basically, you can turn it on, and this adds, I guess, what they're calling top-end air or just high-end air. It sounds pretty pleasant, and it's actually frequency dependent, but I personally almost preferred using the high part of this saturation over this air because, I don't know, it seemed to sound better to my ears. And of course, you have your output gain just to adjust, to the output level that you want, or maybe match the original signal. Up here, we also have a calculation button, which apparently changes how the tubes affect the high end of the spectrum. I guess maybe if you want a brighter signal, you go for bright, or a darker signal, you go for dark. We also have this density knob, and I'm not exactly 100% sure what it does, but it seems, when you turn it up, it seems to more heavily affect the signal. When you pull it back down, it seems like the signal becomes less affected. We also have our input gain, which we can adjust if we're not getting enough volume into the machine, or maybe it's too much. And of course, we have our mix knob. So let's move on to use case number 1, which is using this on your drum bus. And for this, I actually like to turn the pentode down to 35% and the triode up to 65%. This seems to add some nice body to the mid-range and the mid-lows. And also it has that little bit of compression I mentioned. Okay, we're just going to go ahead and have a listen to that before and after. Ooh, need to compensate some gain here. Let's turn that up. So I don't know if you guys can hear that, but it's definitely adding a little bit of low end punch, especially to that kick. On top of this, I really like to bring this saturation in, turn it to the high setting, so that way it's affecting the high frequencies, and turn it to somewhere around 50%. I'll play it while I'm messing with this, but you can really hear it kind of emphasizes the high end of the spectrum and adds a little bit of saturation in there. So I really didn't like the sound of the pentode on drums. I honestly have yet to find a good use case for the pentode. Anytime I used it, it just sounded too harsh. It might sound good on something like an electric guitar, but I tried it on bass, I tried it on drums, I tried it on synths, and I just didn't like what it added compared to the triode. Okay, let's go ahead and see what this sounds like on the full mix. You can tell it's really helping those drums just pop out and cut through. Okay, on to use case number 2, which is on bass growls. Or bass stabs, or I don't know, bassy bass growls. Let's go ahead and drag in our HG2. And again, I found that 35, 65 worked really well in this scenario. Let me just turn off my other elements. See, I don't know if you guys can tell, but it's almost adding like clarity to the stereo image. It's almost like, I don't know, just really bringing it in your face. I also found that I like to add a little bit of that high saturation into this. Okay, let's A/B this. Now let's check it out in the context of the full mix. So real quick, I'd like to show you guys what it sounds like with more of the pentode versus the triode. We may have to do a little gain matching here. Okay, here we go. So I couldn't give you the science behind it, but I definitely like how the triode just seems to give me more power and more body, whereas the pentode, I don't know, to me it almost feels like it seems to thin things out a little bit. So let's move on to what I don't like about this plugin. And first and foremost, I feel like this plugin is not beginner friendly. And you may be thinking, why is that? And it's because as I was using this, I really felt like that it was just extremely easy to overdo it. Just if you push these knobs a bit too much, things start to sound really nasty. And it's kind of hard to tell because those basses are already distorted. But if you were to slap this thing onto every element in your mix, I feel like it would just force all your sounds to more or less squeeze into the same just range of frequencies and fight really heavily for the space in your spectrum. The second thing I really didn't like about this plugin is there's no automatic gain compensation. I feel like at the very least there should have been a link button somewhere here, so that way you could have a link between the pentode and the triode, so that way if you turned one up, then it would turn the other one down, and that would itself offer some nice gain compensation. But at the end of the day, if I'm sitting here clicking back and forth on my output or my triode or my pentode or whatever setting it may be, trying to get my levels matched just right, it's just a big waste of time. So it's like, that's probably going to be the main reason why I don't use this plugin very often in the future. It's just because it's too time consuming trying to match the levels and get my output where I want it. The third thing I really didn't like about this plugin is the fact that there's no presets. I don't know if there's maybe some sort of hidden preset drop down somewhere here, but I couldn't find it. If there is, let me know in the comments and I'll be happy to check it out. But I clicked everywhere and I just couldn't find a preset library. So is the HG2 worth the purchase? Well, in my opinion, for full price, I would definitely say no. I actually got this plugin on a deal for about $40, and I'm honestly glad I didn't pay full price. Otherwise, I would have absolutely regretted it. The functionality it offers could be handy in what feels like very specific scenarios. At no point was I like, wow, this is amazing, I have to have this on every mix. It just wasn't there for me personally. On that note, I just want to say thank you all for watching. I hope you found this review to be insightful, and I hope you all can make it back for the next video. Thank you again, and have an amazing day.